Assalamu alaikum guys, how's everyone doing? Yes, as you can see, I'm in a studio. Guess where? In the Sultanate of Oman. Oman is a very special place for me. It's the second time I'm here, and as you can see, I'm dressed in a very different way. No jeans, no t-shirt, out of respect and love for the Omani people. I've got, as always, a special guest with me, known as Brother Hatim Al Abdissalam. He's the member of the Islamic Information Center, and together we're going to learn a bit about Oman. A lot of people don't know anything about Oman. It's like a hidden gem in the world. Yes, it's in the Gulf, but we don't know a lot about the culture, the history. And today we're going to learn about one of my most favorite countries in the world. Welcome to the show, Brother Hatim Al Abdissalam. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Brother Adil, and welcome to Oman. And it's an honor to be on your show in our country. Alhamdulillah.
I'm the guest.
As you can see that it's very weird today that I'm sitting on this seat. I always ask the questions, so if you see me panicking, then you know that I'm not comfortable being interviewed.
Alhamdulillah. But yeah, I mean, I'm the guest in this country, but you're the guest on the show. One of the first things that strikes me, in fact, when I came for the first time to Oman last year, was a feeling of a lot of tolerance. There's a lot of religious tolerance. Now, I knew it was a Muslim country. I knew a bit about the Ibadi background, etc. What is the secret of this tolerance? You know, finding a masjid, a Sunni masjid, Ibadi masjid, which is, to be honest, exactly the same, a Shia masjid, and they're all given their freedom to practice their faith as they please.
Yes. Well, basically, Oman is in the Arabian Peninsula, and the coastline of Oman is almost 1,700 kilometers. And because of this coastline, most of the Omanis worked in the marine business, whether it is purely in the marine or in trading. And due to trading, they had to travel to places like Africa and India and China and other countries, and they were very open to the idea of accepting others. As Oman was an empire at that time, a lot of people came to live and settle down in Oman, and a lot of Omanis also settled down in other countries like Africa and India and Pakistan. So this created this culture of tolerance from the beginning because of this trade business. And then when His Majesty the Sultan Qaboos ruled the Sultanate in 1970, he also came with the same philosophy and emphasized again and again that our main theme is tolerance. That tolerance is the key to a peaceful coexistence with the others. And he had, you would say, a vision that I would have friends in every part of the map. And today, Oman has achieved that with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wisdom of His Majesty, and we have friends all over the globe. Despite the position of Oman, where there is a lot of turbulence, there is a lot of unsteady calamities, but still Oman, with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is maintaining that tolerance and peace and coexistence.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned later the current political situation. We know what's going on with Iran.
Yes.
You know, and where Oman is strategically so close. Well, it's part of the GCC, the Gulf cooperative countries, right? Yeah. And I think some countries, neighbors, maybe they sometimes feel that Oman needs to take more of a positive role on taking sides. But the philosophy and the spirit has always been being friendly with everyone, not burning the bridges.
Yeah. Brother Adil, me and you know exactly what war and clash between civilizations do to people. We can see the example in Syria, in Yemen, in other places, in Lebanon, in the war between Iraq and Iran, and so on. Nobody wants this instability in their country, and Oman understands this very well. They know that if we get into this, it's going to be very difficult to get out. And even though these clash and these disagreements between countries, they are in the neighboring countries of Oman, for sure they will reach the shores of Oman. So for us to protect ourselves, to be safe, we have to propagate peace. And we have to be the mediators between every party, and we have to make friends with everyone, and we have to be neutral.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, I mean, and that's one of the things I loved about the country was that tolerance. Because look, we know the sectarianism is always going to be there, and there's always going to be different groups. You know, never going to just say, okay, they need to have one school of thought, one brand of Islam. That's impossible. We're human beings. We're going to have different ways of understanding things. But the way the government does it, I've noticed, and people that I've spoken to, maybe you can tell us, calling to sectarianism here is actually a crime.
Yes, it is.
Punishable by
law.
By law.
Yes.
And you can go into prison for it.
Yes.
Can you share more about that?
It's basically, we have to understand in the religious perspective that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He made us into nations and tribes so that we would know and recognize one another. And it was out of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He made all of us different. And because we are different, we have to learn to accept these differences that Allah gave us. And without accepting these differences, we cannot coexist and we cannot live peacefully. And Oman understood this from the beginning, that we are very different. Even in our own self as Omanis, we are all different. We're not the same. Every one of us has a different approach to life. They have a different freedom of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one has the right to dictate to you or to me how I should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that right was given only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and no one else. We are not allowed to judge anyone. We're not allowed to condemn anyone in their faith, because we don't know whether we are right or wrong. We are only following the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would accept from all of us. And we shouldn't look at the issue from only one angle, because heaven or paradise is big enough for all of us.
Okay, that's a beautiful statement. Yeah. I mean, so basically, in the difference and diversity, there is beauty, and it's something that you celebrate.
Yeah. And I didn't actually respond directly to your question about imprisonment, but basically the government to impose this idea and to be a strict rule for people to adhere, especially the coming generations, it has to be regulated by law. People from the beginning, they don't get into sectarianism.
Yes.
And they don't debate or discuss these issues, but the law is always there as a backup plan. We've never heard that people went to prison for that. There are certain minorities in every community. You'll find they say there's a black sheep in every cattle or in every herd.
Yes.
And we had few cases where people transgressed and they got into other people's business, and they deserve to be imprisoned.
Well, it's funny how you put that. You just said something very important. You said they got into other people's business. Yes. And I like that, because that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
When you're so obsessed, because you know, I come from the UK, we have so many masajids, so many mosques, which is great, but they're all according to what group you're from. Even they're racially segregated, to be honest with you. But some people are obsessed with, why are you not like me? Why do you not think like I think? Why are you not like my sheikh? And you know,
I'll give you an example. The mosque next to my house, okay, doesn't have a permanent imam. So what happens? Whoever comes first, he leads the prayer. The Dhuhr prayers will find an Ibadi imam. The Maghrib prayers will find a Sunni imam. It doesn't make a difference. As long as the prayer is led, then everybody prays. My brother-in-law is a Sunni. My sister-in-law is a Shia. And we don't discuss our differences. We discuss our commonalities. And that's the root for every coexistence and peace. And even if you go to places like Iraq, the Shias and the Sunnis used to intermarry, and they lived together, and they worked together, and they coexisted. What happened now? So we should be, as Muslims, we should go back to our roots, يعني being brothers and sisters. And the brotherhood of Islam is the strongest brotherhood you could ever find.
No, it's very true. I mean, even you, just to touch upon the history of Oman, you mentioned they went to Africa, I believe Zanzibar.
Yes.
So you got the East African, that's why many Omani speak Swahili.
Yes, definitely.
And then you got the Omanis that I met are called Baluchi, who are originally from Balochistan, which is basically Pakistan, you know, formerly as India, right? So some of them speak Urdu. So also you got an ethnic mix, beautifully make this one nation. So the asl of the default is Yemeni, because you got the Khanjar,
definitely.
You got the African, East African mix, ingredients added, and then the Pakistani stroke South
And you
Asian.
even have Persians.
And Persians, because Iran is so close. And it's just, but you're all seen as one group of people, Omanis, and you celebrate as that.
And you know, Brother Adil, if we all embed this idea within ourselves as a way of life, you don't need the rules and regulations in the country to regulate this. So we are all on the same page. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I don't say we are a perfect community, but what I'm trying to say is that we're trying our level best to coexist and live together. And it's been a very peaceful journey.
Yes.
And we love to keep it that way.
Yes. I appreciate that. Now, Close Shave TV, the nature of it is we do some controversial stuff at times. We like to do hot topics, something that people don't like to talk about. I can't help but mention the political side. No one likes politicians. No one likes their leaders, especially where we are in the West. You know, we always have satire. We make fun of our leaders. But in the Muslim world, you know, there's this, especially in the Arab Middle Eastern countries, you got a picture of your leader everywhere. But I've sat with the Omanis. I have Omani friends. You know, spent time in Omani's houses, and the way they actually generally make dua for their leader, I've never seen before, I have to say. Like, it's their own father, literally. They clearly, as in Sultan Qaboos, who I'm talking about. What's the secret there? The very strong relationship and the love that they have for their leader. And it's not something that's fake. I can see it's not fake.
I think the older generation would appreciate more the changes that happened in Oman. They lived in the past. They saw what Oman was. We didn't have anything. We had hardly maybe 2 or 3 schools. We didn't have hospitals. We didn't have infrastructure. We didn't have roads. And the Sultan Qaboos dedicated his life with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to build this nation. And his main focus was on human resources, the people of Oman. So he made sure within 45 years that the people of Oman would be civilized, educated, and live a comfortable life. The reason why a lot of Omanis left and went to some of the GCC countries to work, they went to India, they went to Africa, is because it was difficult to live in Oman. Back then. But now, everybody is comfortable enough to live in Oman.
What year is this we're talking about? Before the
Before
70s?
1970.
Before 70.
Before 1970, because His Majesty ruled in 1970.
As in his father, the current leader's father, we're talking about, yes.
So, it's an obvious thing that when you see goodness, genuine goodness from your leader, doing all these things for the benefit of the people, automatically you would appreciate that this person, that he is genuine in what he does for his people.
Indeed.
And one of the things that we are used to from His Majesty is the speeches that he used to give every year. These powerful speeches directly to the people in public. And he addresses certain issues that needs development, that needs, you know, recognition. And people used to follow these speeches, and they were like inspirational speeches.
Wow.
And then he had tours that he did across the Sultanate every year, visiting these villages and provinces to sit with the people in the middle of the desert and talk to them and ask them about the issues that are facing and challenges that they are facing in the country.
It reminds me of how a lot of the Emiratis speak very highly and pray and make dua for Sheikh Zayed.
Sheikh Zayed, yes.
Very similar.
May Allah have mercy on his soul.
Allah have mercy on him. And may Allah protect and help the current Sultan Qaboos, inshallah, because without a doubt what he's done has worked. And the country, I think, is great. And I don't mean to just say that for the sake of it. You know, there's a very different vibe and feeling here, something about it. It's very positive.
I personally started going to school in the 70s, and I started my early years of school in a tent where we didn't have proper classrooms and we didn't have air cons, we didn't have proper transport. But today when I see my kids studying in modern schools with all this technology and comfort, and they have everything. AC, most importantly in this heat. By the way, it's 50 degrees in Oman today.
I know.
So we have to, tell our kids, our children about the story of Oman and where we were and what we have today, for them to appreciate. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who appreciate this ni'mah.
Well, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man lam yashkur an-nas, lam yashkur Allah." Whoever does not, the Prophet Muhammad said, whoever does not thank the people, then he's not thanked Allah.
Yes.
More about your background. You mentioned growing up and studying in a tent. Tell me a bit more about your childhood growing up here, and why is it you went into maybe the da'wah scene?
Well, actually, as a young man growing up in Oman, I was a very shy person and I was very isolated. And later on in my 20s, and then I changed and became a member of the Islamic Information Center, and that was a turning point in my life. I didn't want to be a part of the Islamic Information Center, but thanks to two of my uncles who have been members at the center for more than 15 years, and they encouraged me to be part of the center. And when I started going to the center and met all these wonderful people who work in the field of da'wah, and the amount of tourists that visit the mosque every single day, almost 4,000 people from all over the world come and visit the mosque, I found my place at the center. I found my passion in life, and I knew that I was meant to do this. And I really regretted the years that passed by not getting into the field of da'wah, because it opened up a lot of doors for me. As a person, it made me for sure a better person. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I can see that in your character
and
your $1 million smile.
Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah.
Allah bless you. You say the mosque. People are going to be wondering, what do you mean by the mosque?
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
We have the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque, which is a tourism destination here in Oman. One of the very popular spots where tourists get the opportunity to visit this beautiful piece of architectural, Islamic architectural work.
Yes.
They get to go in the mosque, and they get volunteers from the Islamic Information Center, where they explain to them about the mosque, about the architecture. And the role that we play at the Islamic Information Center is to present Islam as it is, give the right information, and remove misconceptions about this great religion.
Okay, excellent, mashallah, excellent. I mean, I've been to the masjid myself.
Yes.
I encourage everyone to go to the masjid. It's beautiful. The gardens as well, the way the architecture is and the way it's designed, it's beautiful. It is amazing.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Now, we've spoken about Oman, the secret of Oman, why it's so tolerant and it won't allow anyone to become sectarian or attack each other's different school of thoughts or faith. I can't help but attribute that to the Ibadi school of thought, the Ibadi understanding of Islam. A lot of people don't even know what Ibadism is, right? And I know some Ibadis don't like to be called Ibadis, right?
It's surprising that you're mentioning this, and we discussed this before the show, and I told you that in my 20s I went to the Far East for my further studies, and until that point of time I could not distinguish between an Ibadi and a Sunni and a Shia. I was not aware of the differences. And when I was in university, some of my Malaysian colleagues, they asked me, "What are you?" And that was really puzzling for me. I never heard this question before, and I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What madhab are you? What sect are you?" And I had to call my dad and ask him about this. And my dad responded in a very nice way, and he said, "I sent you there to get an education, so get an education and don't bother yourself with this stuff." So basically in Oman, we don't talk about it. We don't find it necessary to label one another, because as you said, we don't like to be labeled Ibadis, we don't like to label others as Sunnis or Shia. We believe, even the word madhab, you will hardly hear it in Oman. You will hear people saying al-madrasa al-fiqhiyya, or the school of thought.
Juristic school of thought.
Yeah, madrasa al-fiqhiyya. We don't say madhab, because we feel that when you say the word madhab, people become sensitive. It's as if you have cast them out as a separate group. But if you say they are a school of thought, it means I can also benefit from the school. I can also be part of that school.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem attending lectures with our brothers who are Shia. I don't have a problem going to pray with them. I don't have a problem listening to a Shaykh who is following the Sunni school of thought. I don't have a problem. I read their books, they read our books, we live together, we intermarriage, we work together. Then what else could we ask for? And I think that's the main purpose of this religion, is to bring people together and not to send them apart.
That's a very excellent diplomatic answer, mashallah. I mean, look, I don't want to go too much into what is Ibadism. You're right, people want to know, they can do the research themselves. I personally think there's not a lot of difference at all. For those that are more academically inclined to study theology, it has a lot of similarities with Sunni Islam anyway, and Shia Islam. But I feel more so with Sunni Islam on many things. But I can't help but attribute the positive culture, tolerant culture here to maybe their understanding of how they see the deen, which is what you tied back to the Quran.
And I think a lot of people are also wondering, they might be wondering, what is the secrecy about this Ibadism? You know, why don't we know? We don't know about it. Omanis have been all the way in the coast of Africa, East Africa, and they have settled there, like in Zanzibar and Kenya
and North
and Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and all these places Omanis settled, and then until today we would find Omanis there.
Algeria, Tunisia as well.
And they affected and they influenced the people in these places to become Muslims. But you would hardly find Ibadis in these places. So people normally ask us, you spread Islam in Africa, in these places, why didn't you turn people into Ibadis? And the simple response to that is that our duty is to propagate Islam and not to propagate Ibadism.
Yes.
Because Islam is the path, is the way. And Ibadism is an understanding of this religion only. So we don't have a problem if someone says La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, khalas.
Well, it's you know, and we've studied this in history, you know, in the Quran, when you meet people, it's a means to an end. But people take the means, and the means becomes the end. So you forget the end, you forget the end goal. It's all about the means, you know. It's not about Allah anymore. It's about the Son of God, Jesus, right? Yeah. Which is unfortunately where, as Muslims believe, the Christians obviously may have erred, you know. The messenger is a means to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right?
Yes.
And again, we do this with our schools of thought, madrasa system, your sect, your sheikh, whoever. Why do you think we do that?
I think most of the issues and problems we have in this world today is out of ignorance. We are afraid of what is different. If we see something that is different to our way of doing things, then the alarm bell goes on.
Precisely.
There must be a problem here. But actually this diversity is healthy and good, because you have an understanding in a certain way, we have an understanding in a different way, and this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we look at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even the Sahaba themselves, they disagreed while the Prophet ﷺ was between them. Like the companions that were commanded by the Prophet ﷺ to travel from one place to another, and he told them that you have to pray Al-Asr in Khaybar. Bani Nadir, sorry. And some of the companions prayed Al-Asr, and some of them didn't pray Al-Asr until the time of Maghrib came. And when they went back to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you are right, and you are right. So I think we lack today is fiqh al-ikhtilaf, the jurisprudence of differences. This is
how to differ. We need to learn how to differ.
We have to accept these differences, and we should not, it should not lead us to be to have animosity towards our brothers, because a believer is not a believer if he doesn't love his brothers and sisters.
Okay, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Sheikh, I'm about to cry now, This is too much love, there's something fishy on. Alhamdulillah, but this is, we're not used to this type of dialogue, where everyone's accepted.